Hello friends, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, whatever time it is when you're watching this. We are starting a thriller reading vlog. I ended up having to refilm this intro, so I'm now post-books, post-reading, but I want to catch you up on what's happening. What's going on? I'm reading thriller books, 3 of them. I'm going to read in this vlog Hidden Pictures by Jason Rekulak, The Prisoner by B.A. Paris, and Anywhere You Run by Wanda M. Morris. 3 books, 3 thrillers, or so I thought going in. We'll find out as we go. And all ones that I've been interested in and looking forward to reading, all of which I also am reading on audio. Are we surprised? No. That's going to contribute to kind of how we're rating these. So let me set up the rating scale. So first of all, we're going to rate these based on the twist. Because they are thrillers, presumably, what I look for when I'm reading a thriller is a good twist. So that's going to be our first criteria. We're going to rate these out of 5, and for the twist, I'm going to use this graphic. I hope for obvious reasons, because it's twisty, it's a pretzel. Our next area of criteria is going to be the characters. I want some depth to my characters. I want them to seem real. I want them to seem 3-dimensional. So we're going to be using the anchor to represent the depth that I'm looking for. I know it's whimsical. I'm so whimsical. Next, we're gonna base this on the writing style and just kind of how the story was put together, the writing itself, how I enjoyed it, the specifics of this author and what kind of draws me to this author. And for this, we're using the obvious graphic of a pencil with paper. Lastly, we're going to be judging this based on the audio performance or the audio production, kind of all of that wrapped into one. For that, I'm going to be using this graphic. For that, I'm looking for just not an annoying narrator. I want it to make sense without the book. Sometimes you need the book, sometimes you don't. Sometimes the audio is just not done in a way that makes sense for how the book is written, and sometimes the audio narrator takes too many liberties, so we're just going to critique this based on how well the audio is done as well. Each of these categories will be out of 5. There's 4 categories. That means there is a possible 20 points for each book. And at the end of this video, we will find out which one wins. So I ended up having to scrap the original intro of this. So I'm going to catch you up a little bit on Hidden Pictures because this is the book that I started with. You're going to want to know what it's about, right? So Hidden Pictures, Jason Rekulak. I'm finally reading this one because I got the physical copy. I didn't want to miss out on the pictures. Because there are illustrations within this throughout the book, I wanted to make sure that this was something that I could listen to and also read along with. So my reading experience for this is going to be physical and audio. If you don't know what this one's about, we're following Mallory Quinn. She's freshly out of rehab, about 18 months sober from oxy and heroin, so some heavy stuff. She gets this opportunity to be the nanny for the Maxwells and their little 5-year-old boy named Teddy. Caroline Maxwell, the mother, she works with people in recovery, so she's willing to give Mallory a chance, even though Big Ted, Daddy Ted, isn't necessarily on board. So she's living in their guest house, in their little pool house, cottage place. She is loving this experience. She is starting over. Also, I want to mention Mallory is religious. She's gone through AA. Jason Rekulak is setting up this dynamic between her and the Maxwells, who are in fact atheist. So that is actually going to be a factor in this because little Teddy is an avid drawer and starts to draw his imaginary friend. And so the setup of this is that Mallory comes to think as Teddy's drawings get better and better and better to the point where it's not even feasible that a 5-year-old could have drawn these things. Mallory starts to think that there is the ghost of a woman who died in her cottage 80 years ago, who is trying to portray this message to her through Teddy's drawings. And because the Maxwells are atheists, they don't really believe this. So this whole time we're kind of going back and forth between, is this a ghost? Is it Teddy's imagination? Is it Mallory's imagination? And more on that dynamic later, but I just want to set you up for that. Up until about halfway through this, I kind of thought I knew where the twist was going. The pacing in the first half is really well done. It is through the perspective of Mallory in first person present tense, so you really get to know her as a character. And I think that's probably where I'm going to leave it for you now. And I will go ahead and send you back over to Before Time Elizabeth. Stop assaulting me with kisses. Oh my god. Today, it's time for an update. I finished Hidden Pictures last night. Read it in one day. First of all, I want to say that you don't have to have this in order to read it. You can listen to the audio without it. This does add to the ambiance of it, but you don't need to have it. You can just listen to the audio. But I do recommend having both because it definitely added to that spook factor that I was looking for. I do think this is a little bit popcorny, so, and not in a bad way, but like you don't really have to think too hard. It doesn't have a whole lot to say, but it's a really fun, fast-paced thriller. And if it's something that you can just sit down with, get some enjoyment out of it, and not have to put too much brain power into, which is nice. So let's go over our criteria. The twist was good. The twist was good. And before, when I mentioned that I thought I knew what was coming, that was like a reveal, but that was not the twist. That I was right on about. It did go where I thought it was going to go, even though I couldn't have guessed like the details of how it happened. It definitely went there, but then the twist came, and I was not expecting that twist at all. I did not gasp out loud, but at the same time I was like, okay, that's original. It's not something that's been done over and over and over again. And I feel like it actually fits in really well with the time and place that this is set in our society. So for the twist, I think I'm gonna give this 5 out of 5 for the twist. I don't think any of these other books that I'm reading for this are gonna beat that twist. Very impressed with it, very happy with this ending. I thoroughly enjoyed myself throughout this entire book. The character development. Okay, so our main character, Mallory, was three-dimensional. I felt for her. You know going in that she's done some terrible things. And you know that she's dealt with addiction, and she is in a place now where she's trying to be redeemed for that. So it's really easy to be on her side and to fight for her, even though you know that she makes mistakes. And even along the way, she makes some choices that are like, come on, you know that's gonna come back and bite you in the ass. Like, you know that's gonna bite you in the ass. But at the same time, you're still rooting for her. So she's really easy to root for, but she's also not like this perfect person. So I really appreciated that. I will say though that some of the other characters in here didn't have as much depth as she did. Of course, we don't really expect that from like our kind of side characters. Teddy, I did love. Teddy is just easy to fall in love with. For characters, I think I'm gonna give this 3 out of 5. The majority of the characters I thought were really well done and three-dimensional, but there were just some things that didn't quite make sense for the story. I'm only mentioning it because this is the criteria that we've set out. It did not bother me as I was reading it at all. The writing style, it's really straightforward. This is not like a flowery writing style at all. It is told in first person, so you are getting the perspective of Mallory, and she's telling it in present tense for most of the story. And so, yeah, it's just like you're really getting to know Mallory's character, and I think that's probably part of the reason why we don't get depth of character from some of the other ones, but I thought the writing style was well done. It's nothing crazy. It's nothing like Mona Awad's writing, where I love her like metaphor, or like Gillian Flynn, where she has just the best simile, but it's straightforward, it's to the point. Again, you don't have to think about it. And the way that this was set out, the way it was paced, was perfect. The reveal placement within the story was perfect. Very polished, very put together. Great job. I'm gonna give it a 4 out of 5. And then the audio performance for this, I believe I said her name was Susie Jackson. She did great. She really did awesome. I don't know anything else that she has voiced offhand, but her voice sounds really familiar to me. And it's that kind of voice that's very crisp and clear, but also sounds like one of your best friends. Like, you can just connect with the voice. It doesn't have anything that's annoying about it. The production quality was great. I had no issues with the audio whatsoever. I'm gonna give that a 5 out of 5. So it's 17 out of 20. That's gonna be hard to beat. Wow, okay. So 17 out of 20 for this one. Now I have also today I started The Prisoner by B.A. Paris. This is her newest release, and it's about this woman, Emily, who is married to this man, Ned, who I cannot not picture Ned Stark. So Ned is Ned Stark by association. But anyway, Ned is this really, really rich, powerful guy, grew up in this distinguished family. He had some issues with his father and his inheritance, but he ended up getting a lot of money from his grandfather when he died. And now he owns this magazine. When the story opens, we're following Emily, And again, this is in first person. The way the book describes it is that she realizes that she's kidnapped. She starts to feel like this is a better situation than she had been in before with her husband anyway. So it's like her husband's shitty, but this is better because he's so bad. Someone's ransoming them for money, ransoming his rich family. But anyway, the way it's told, it's like it's dual timeline. So half of the chapters are in this present day where she's in total blackness, total darkness, can't see anything. She doesn't even know when they're like slipping her food. She has to like feel around. She can't see anything in this room that she's held in. And so we're kind of going along with her on that. In the past timeline, we are getting the story of Emily as she's growing up, these hardships that she went through as a teenager. She was kind of on her own and she's in London struggling, trying to figure out a way to save money and go to college. She wants to be a lawyer. So she has all of these ambitions. I think what's going to happen is that that story is going to catch up to the current timeline, but I'm not quite sure about that. So far, like, it's super British. Why can I think of that word? There's a word that the Brits use, disorientating.
I didn't know what to do. I was so disorientated.
Whereas we would just say disoriented.
I woke up. There was no one around me.
I was incredibly disorientated.
Yeah, it's super British. And our main character is half Brit and French, which also I found out is B.A. Paris, the author. So that's an interesting tie in there. The audio narrator, she's no Imogen Church, okay? But she's good. Let's see who is the audio narrator, because I don't know. Who is the freaking audio narrator? Narrated by Georgia McGuire. Georgia McGuire. Yeah, she's fine. She's good. She sounds like her voice is a little bit meek sounding for my taste, but well done. The audio is great so far. Like, I have no complaints other than that about the audio. But I don't feel like this is going to go anywhere that I don't expect it to go already. I don't see this surprising me. I don't see it shocking me, but you never know, it might. But the thing with B.A. Paris is, like, I loved Behind Her Eyes, and then pretty much every subsequent book, I really haven't had that same kind of vibe with. There were a couple, in fact, that I just felt like were straight up family drama and not even thrillers. So my hopes aren't too high. So if this does go there, it's gonna help it out a lot. It's going to raise my opinion and my expectations of B.A. Paris. But I don't know yet. We'll see. I will let you know. Hopefully I'll finish this book tonight, and I will get back to you probably in the morning and let you know how it went. Filming has become an entirely new struggle because now we have two little demons, little devils. Who's that? Who is that? Rip, who is that? Oh my goodness, who is that?
It's business. It's business time. You know when I'm down to just my socks, that's why they call it business socks.
It is snowing. It is legitimately snowing right now. Oh my god.
No. Making love for two. Making love for 2 minutes. Because 2 minutes is all you need with me, baby, because I'm so intense. 2 minutes in heaven are better than 1 minute.
All right, we've got some catching up to do. It's been a couple of days. I finished The Prisoner. So I want to talk about that and review that, but I'm also about 60% into Anywhere You Run by Wanda M. Morris, and so I want to talk about that as well. Okay, The Prisoner. Let's talk about our criteria. So let's start with the twist. I did not think the twist was that great. It was kind of predictable. I didn't know exactly what it was, but I knew something from the beginning was going to tie into the end, and so when it did happen, it just didn't surprise me all that much. The ending of this felt a little bit rushed, a little bit lazy in the way that everything was revealed. A lot of stuff was just over the top the entire time. So, which I normally don't mind. I don't mind an over the top thriller because it helps to make a good plot. It makes it exciting. And it was, but if you don't like over-the-top thrillers, then that might bother you with this, because it's very much like Orphan Annie, Daddy Warbucks relationship between Amelie and Ned, except not in like a pedophile way, but in like a murdery way. But the twist wasn't all that great at all. So I'm going to give it a 2 out of 5 for the twist, unfortunately. The characters. Again, a lot of broad strokes with these characters, not too much depth, except for Amelie, our main character, because again, this is in first-person narrative, so of course we get more information about her and her backstory. It's also a dual timeline. I don't know if I mentioned that before, but because of that, we see her past and we see her present, and so you get a pretty good idea of who she is as a person, but it seems like almost every other character in this story is just like they could have been played by anyone. They weren't specifically interesting or have any kind of nuance or depth to them. It was very much like, even though most of this book is spent in this pitch black room, it's more of a plot-focused story than a character-focused story, if that makes sense. The action, though, it's not an action movie where they're like jumping through windows and bursting through walls.
Out into the sky.
Okay, sorry, I just got Jason Robert Brown. Just came rushing through. It's kind of like this internal like web, this kind of espionage, like what's going on below the surface. So you're getting these surface details and you have to kind of figure out how it all weaves together, almost like a mystery, I guess, in that sense. But yeah, I didn't see any incredible character development in here, so I'm gonna give it a 3 out of 5 for character. Writing. I do think this was cleverly written. Like, you can tell that Mia Paris is very poised, has experience, has been doing this for a long time. The way she wove the story is probably the most interesting thing about it. Because of the dual timeline, they are slowly getting closer and closer together. So even though like this one's in the past, it's working its way forward from the past, and then the present is kind of all staying still. And so this one is going to catch up to this one. And so in my head, I was like, okay, I need to know how we got from here to here. And so I wanted to wait for it to get to that point. So I was very intrigued and interested to figure that out, which made the pacing feel quick. So that was well done. There was this certain element that connected both timelines relating to her father, that kind of connects to the way that she gets out of the situation that she's in, or not necessarily gets out of it, but is able to manipulate or get the upper hand. And so I really liked that. I think that was probably the most creative part of the story without giving too much away. So for the writing, I'm going to give it a 4 out of 5. So let's talk about the audio production and the audio narrator. The narrator was good. She had a great performance. The production quality was good as well. Really don't have complaints about that. It was easy to follow. I don't feel like you needed the physical book for this at all. It's perfectly normal to follow with the audio without any complications. The only complaint that I have is that, I mean, it sounds biased.
And it is.
But whenever I have a British narrator, I want Imogen Church. And she's no Imogen Church. Her voice sounded kind of meek, kind of frail, in a very like haughty-taughty kind of way. She didn't sound like someone I would be friends with, which is a silly way to kind of rate her, but it just felt less than perfection for me. And nothing wrong with that. You may love her voice. Just wasn't my ideal narrator. For that, I'm going to give it 4 out of 5. What is that? Out of 28? 13 out of 20. So far we have Hidden Pictures in the lead with, I think it was 17 out of 20. We have The Prisoner with 13 out of 20 underneath that. And then we'll move on to Anywhere You Run. God, why do I keep forgetting the title of this? I think that's it. I do want to mention really quick, I have been looking through reviews for Hidden Pictures since I finished it, and I guess I was a little bit sheltered. Most of the people that I've heard who have read this, who are my friends, who I trust their opinion, have enjoyed this book. And when I looked up the Goodreads reviews, I found a lot that were negative, which I was surprised with. But one thing Actually, I saw this review on a subreddit thread that said that she felt like, as a Christian, the author was very biased towards Christians and was making the atheists out to be these really bad people because they were atheists, and making the girl, Mallory was her name, out to be this kind of pure, serene Christian ideal. I didn't see it that way. Especially as an atheist, I did not see it as him trying to say that atheists are bad or atheists are evil and idealizing this Christian virtue. I didn't take it that way. The one thing that I did notice is that he used that divide as a way to say this person who is religious can believe in ghosts and this person who is not religious cannot believe in ghosts, which I felt lacked a little bit of nuance. But other than that, I didn't find it offensive as an atheist. So I just thought that was an interesting take and something I should mention. And then there was also another bit about the twist, which I don't want to say what it is, obviously, because I don't want to spoil you. But some people were saying the twist was problematic. And I don't think it is. The twist can be a little bit controversial, but I don't think it is exploitative. And I don't think that it is shining a negative light on that certain population. Take that with what you will. I'm not of that population, so I don't know that my opinion actually means anything, but as someone who tries to feel empathetic towards all people, I don't see it being offensive, but that's just my opinion. Anyway, let's move on. Let's go ahead and talk about Anywhere You Run by Wanda M. Morris. Wanda M. Morris wrote All Her Little Secrets last year, I think, or the year before maybe. I really enjoyed that one, so I wanted to check out her next new release, her newest release that just came out. So I picked up Anywhere You Run. Now, All Her Little Secrets I really liked because it was following, I believe her name was Elise, and she was this high-powered lawyer, Black woman, that kind of got caught up in this conspiracy within her workplace. It was just a really fun, quick, fast-paced story with a lot of social commentary, so I wanted to check out this one. Now, this one is very different. It's a little bit slower paced, it's a little bit more character-driven, and it's a little bit of a heavier subject. It's also historical, so very different from All Her Little Secrets. It's set in Jackson, Mississippi in 1964, in the depths of the Jim Crow South. Obviously, we're going to have a lot of talk about race, about class, about privilege. So at the beginning of the story, we hear that 3 men have been killed who were working with political parties in order to give the right for Black people to vote. And this is the time when it was legal, but they were putting them through these rigorous tests that absolutely no one would pass in a way to keep them from voting. So it was technically legal and everything was technically not segregated anymore, but none of this was being enacted upon in the South. It was still very much the segregated South and racist and heavy and thick with oppression. We're following a couple of people, mainly Violet, who is a Black woman. She has 2 sisters, or had 2 sisters. They are all named after flowers: Violet, Marigold, and Rose. All of their parents have died. Well, both of their parents have died, and then Rose, who was the eldest sister, also died. We don't know how she died, but we know that it was somehow connected to Violet, or Violet, in the very least, feels responsible for her death. So Violet is beautiful, and she has a loud mouth, and she tends to make decisions quickly and not really put too much thought into her actions. She lets her emotions guide her. And Marigold is a little bit more plain, a little bit more sensible. She is working in politics, the studious sister. And so they're on their own, living in their parents' house that they grew up in. Violet is sexually assaulted by a white man and ends up killing him. So she has to go on the run. Marigold finds out she's pregnant, and she has to figure out how to navigate this without being shamed and shunned by the town because she is a single. So she kind of is trying to get through this. They both end up leaving the state, trying to head north, one to escape the police, the other one to try to find a better life. And so the story is talking about their journey, essentially. But there is someone that's been sent to track them down, and so it's kind of this like cat and mouse hunt thing, and it's all intermingled and interwoven together. I feel like I told you a lot, and you still don't know what this book is about. Do I even know what this book is about? I don't know. So this man who is hot on their trail has his own brand of dark secrets that he's holding that nobody else knows about, and his own motive, which is also interesting. Yeah, so far I'm enjoying it. I am in it, but it is a slower pace. This is not like a really fast-paced, twisty thriller. This is a very in-depth character study that is shining light on these practices that happened in Jim Crow, Mississippi, Jim Crow South, and that is exposing these inequalities while at the same time focusing on the struggle of these two women and shining a light on who they are as people. Marigold and Violet, they're just both very human people who are trying to get by, and they're struggling. It's a lot slower than I would have imagined after reading all of her little secrets, but I'm finding a lot of value in there. I'm enjoying the story, so I'm not mad about it. I will check back in with you guys when I finish it. We need to talk about Anywhere You Run. It's been a few days since I finished it. I've already read another book, and I'm like partway into another book. It's sticking. It's sticking with me. This was not what I expected. So profound. I don't think I mentioned that there is a foreword or like an author's note at the beginning of this from Wanda M. Morris, and she specifically mentions, hey, I don't use this language, but this is set in a place and time where this language was used, therefore it is in the book. So trigger warning for you for language. Think of things that people would say back then to Black people, people of color. That's all in there, and it's triggering. So, you know, if that's something that you can't handle, don't read this. I do appreciate that Wanda M. Morris put that forward in there, that author's note, to let us know. Just prepare yourself. Hey, get in this headspace because that's where you're going to be at. Okay, so my reading of this book obviously is from the perspective of a white woman. That said, it was hard. It was uncomfortable. This is not an easy read, but it's so worth it. I would say that this is very much a character study that just happens to be set in a place and time where being a Black woman and being a Black person at all makes happiness next to impossible. The bigotry, the racism, it's all so deeply rooted. You know, it's interesting for me because I don't usually read this kind of book. Usually when I read a social horror, it's because it's taking some essence of this and comparing that to some kind of element of horror, whether it be like monsters or ghosts, etc. There's no comparison here. It is social horror because it's literally social horror, but it's also just literally horror because it's real life, like it happened. And the fact that this is only like 60 years ago that this book was set, devastating, astounding, almost unbelievable. As the reader, you're forced to sit in it. You're forced to sit in it, to sit with it, and just like accept that this is how things were. There's a huge reckoning that you have to deal with. Because it's historical, it forces you to acknowledge how far we've come and understand that even though there are pieces of this that are still sinisterly woven into our culture and our policy, like this is a time when it was so upfront, just like, hey, I'm a wolf, you about to die. It hits differently. It absolutely hits differently. It's hard. It's hard. So let's go ahead and get into our ratings of this. First, the twist. There's not really a twist here. There's definitely enough plot going on to keep you interested in the story. It kind of does go places where you might not expect, but in the typical sense of like a thriller, it doesn't have that twist that I would normally look for. There's no moment where I was like, oh, it's not trying to pull the wool over your eyes. It's just like, hey, this is how it was. That's the horror. That's the horror aspect. That's the thriller aspect. It's not thrilling. I mean, it's thrilling, but it's like, it's horrific and raw. and terrible. So anyway, I'm gonna give it a 3 out of 5 for the twist. Characters. Okay, the characters are the best part of this book. I almost want to say movie because like I saw it in my head as like a movie. But the characters are the best part. It's about family, it's about these sisters, it's about their connection, about their striving to find happiness, to find better lives, even with all of this tragedy that constantly surrounds them. It's about striving for a better future even though the cards are stacked against them, and I love it. It's very much like you root for them so hard, both sisters. The characters are amazing, 5 out of 5. The writing. Yeah, considering this is something that I did not plan on going into with this type of mindset, the writing was fantastic. The story was perfectly woven. There's this kind of general tying theme. Not theme, but like, I guess inciting incident. That's like kind of your like macro view of like this timeline, this place in Mississippi or in the South. This is kind of like what you would see in the newspaper. And then we zoom in and we learn how the implications of that affect the lives of these specific characters that we're following. So it all comes together in the end. It's very smartly written, very well executed, 5 out of 5. And then we have the audiobook. Again, audiobook was great, fantastic. It had 3 audio narrators, Janina Edwards, Shayna Small, and Adam Lazar-White. All of them were fantastic. There's no questioning whose point of view are we listening to right now. It's very obvious as you're listening, and all 3 of them did an excellent performance as well. And the production of it was done perfectly, 5 out of 5. What's that? 5, 10, 15, 16, 17, 18 out of 20. So this is our winner. And I think this is probably my highest rated as well. I've been reading some really good books lately. I'm having such a good reading month so far. I'm just like so happy with where my reading's going. I don't know if I'm just picking up the right books or if I am just have a better idea of what I like to read and what I like in books and I'm just gravitating towards that. I don't know. But overall, as far as ratings go, I'm giving The Prisoner, I'm giving a 3 star. I think that's gonna be good for if you're just getting into thrillers, if you are a bit of an Anglophile and you want like a super British thriller. It didn't blow me away, but I didn't have a bad time with it either. Just kind of right down the middle, 3 stars. Hidden Pictures, I'm giving 4.5 stars, which now after some thought, like maybe it should be 4 stars. But also, I don't know if that's biased because I've just been listening to these weird reviews about it and things like that. But I really, really liked Hidden Pictures. And then Any Way You Run is going to be a 5-star book. I can't deny it a 5-star. I just think it's so important. When you combine the profundity with entertainment value, and when you make me fall in love with these characters, it's just like, I couldn't ask for more. It's 5 stars. So those are the 3 thriller books that I read for this vlog. Thank you for hanging out with me along the way. If you're still with me, thank you so much. I appreciate you guys. I feel like I'm about to lose my voice. Whew. That's gonna be it for me today, y'all. I will see you next time. Don't forget that life is short, so read Riley. I don't have anything to cheers with. This always happens. I put the cheers in there and I don't have a drink with me. I need one and my throat hurts. Goodbye! Shit. Okay, I'll see you later.